Hey, Monica, did you know it's now even easier to listen to Round the Hay Bale podcast?
What? Really? How easy?
That's right. All you have to do is say, Alexa, play Round the Hay Bale podcast.
Playing Round the Hay Bale podcast on Apple Music.
Ooh, we fancy. Tune in to Round the Hay Bale every Monday at 9 a.m. Central.
Round the Hay Bale is brought to you by...
With gardening season in full bloom, Cayce certified organic products are just what your garden needs.
From fertilizing your orchards to feeding your soil, Cayce's calcium-based fertilizer gives your plants the essential minerals they need to thrive.
Applying Cayce to agricultural soils and waters has been proven to increase plant and crop yields while making vegetables and grains healthier and more nutritious.
In addition, Cayce can help restore the nutrient balance in animals when they're fed plants grown using Cayce in both soil and water.
To check out all of Cayce's organic products, visit cayce.com and use our promo code HAYBALE for 10% off of your purchase.
Grab a cup of joe and gather round the hay bale with your hosts, Alicia from Country Mama Musings, Cayce from Ormsby Farms, and Monica from Bland's Promised Land Ranch. Now, here they are. Hey, y'all. Hey.
Hey, y'all. Hey, welcome back to Round the Hay Bale. We're continuing on with Season 4. I'm Alicia.
What's up, y'all? It's Cayce.
And I'm Monica. Welcome back to the Hay Bale. So today on this podcast episode, we are talking about the homesteading classroom, all the different things where you're teaching your kids, where you're teaching yourself, how you're learning. We're discussing school systems, maybe public, private, charter, homeschooling. What do you do? How do you learn and how do you teach your family? Because it's not just about little kids, it's about your family in general. So we're kind of talking all about the homesteading classroom today. And, you know, we're all in different seasons of our lives, you know, between Alicia and Cayce and myself, we're all in different places with our children, with our family style and our family, you know, size. You know, we're in a different place. So it's kind of interesting. And we can offer you 3 different perspectives on this too. So let's start with Alicia. Alicia, you have 4 kids. And so you have had opportunities to school your kids and train your kids and teach yourself and teach your children. How can you give us a little insight on some of the schooling and maybe some of the options that you know of that are out there?
Sure. You know, I really am happy that we're breaching this topic today because all 4 of my sons are grown now, but throughout the course of their lives, I've had the opportunity to send some of my children to private Christian school, the public school setting. I've homeschooled, and I've also had my children in a charter school setting. So I have run the gambit on all different types of educational settings. I have the most experience, and I think I will probably focus on this end of it because I know Monica will give us a lot of insight on homeschooling. But I think the best option that I found for my children, and unfortunately I didn't find it soon enough. A lot of my children were actually in the public school system before I was able to not only place my last child in a charter school, but I also worked for the charter school. Now, before I get too deep into the charter school setting, I want to dispel a notion that many people have. Many people think it's public school versus charter school. People need to realize a charter school is public education. It is paid by the same funds that you would receive. It's called ADA, Average Daily Attendance Money from the state that you live in. A certain amount goes towards your students' education. If they attend the school of residence where they live, so for instance, if you live in a little subdivision and all of the children in that subdivision go to a specific middle school, elementary school, or high school, those funds are allocated for your child to go to that school of residence. If you choose to place your child in a charter school, those funds are still public fund money it just gets sent over to the charter schools. You have that choice. I have been privy over many years, 20 years at least now, of the battle back and forth between people thinking that they need to either choose public school or charter school. And a lot of the times there's your school of residences. They don't like charter schools coming into their neighborhood because they feel like charter schools are stealing their money. It is still public education. They still have to follow the state standards. You still have to do your state testing, but you have a lot more flexibility in what you're able to teach your child, how you're able to teach your child. Many times the charter school systems are set up with actual teachers who are credentialed, and they help you put together your class list, everything that your child needs that's based on the grade that they're in so that they follow the standards. But you have flexibility. So I know that when I first started working for the charter school, and that's the school I placed my youngest son in, the local school district had a fit because they were seeing their students leave their school of residence and go to the charter school. Why are they having a fit? It's because it's been the status quo. Everything is just going the way it is, and you don't have a choice. But when you have a choice, now they realize we need to up our game and to create programs and classroom settings and curriculum that are going to entice our children to stay in their school of residence. Having said that, not every child fits into that box. Not everybody learns the same. People need
Right.
different settings. They need different areas. They need different curriculum and ways of an approach of learning. And I think that's where a charter school is really a great option. Within the charter school that I worked for, and I'm going to say who it is because they are branching out. They're starting to come into Tennessee. I believe they're starting to look into other areas. They're the largest charter school system now in the United States, and it's called Springs Charter School. And I worked for them for 8 years, and my youngest son went through his senior year with them. An excellent, excellent program. Unfortunately, you're going to have people that say, oh, it was a terrible program. It didn't work for me. It didn't work for them because many parents are used to dropping their child off at the front of the school. The school does everything, and then your child either passes or fails. Where when you're working with a charter school, there's a lot of homeschool element to it, and you have to be involved with that student. You have to be involved with their teacher. It takes a lot more hands-on. Yes, Monica? Unmute. There you go.
Okay.
Nope, you're not unmuted. Unmute. I still cannot hear you, Monica. Monica's trying to chime in. She's so excited, you guys. You should see her face.
Okay.
Is she here?
there.
There she is. Here she is.
I'm so sorry. Okay. So my question for you is, okay, so, like you said, the parents have to be more hands-on. So when, there's a lot of public school people who drop their kids off, but then they want to be a part of it. So they volunteer and things like that. Those parents are probably more cut out for the charter school type of lifestyle because they are more active. They do want to have more to do with that type of learning. Is that what you're saying? You're saying the parents
it's not necessarily what I'm saying. I'm saying that they do fit into that arena.
Okay.
But if you have a parent who just thinks it's going to be another place that everything's handled for them, that's not necessarily the way that goes. You
So
do
with
have
charter
to be more
schools,
involved.
you need to be more hands-on. You need to be available and maybe make yourself more ready to be hands-on or available to that school system as they need you, or that charter system as they need you.
And what's really great about the charter school system that I worked for, again, it's called Springs. They have so many different opportunities. You can do 100% homeschooling. You can do a blended program where your student goes to an academy a couple days a week, and then the rest is home-based learning. They have programs where it's 5 days at an academy, but again, you're expected to be really involved with your child. The great thing about charter schools, let's look at it this way, and I really think this is a great way to just kind of sum that up, is when your child goes to their school of residence, that's where they go. There's no choice. That's where the city says your child goes to school. When you go to a charter school, it is a school of choice. And you can choose to put your child in that school. But if your child is not going to work the program and do their work and really take advantage of a wonderful opportunity for their education, the charter school has the choice to say, this is a school of choice and we don't think this is the right setting for you. And they will have them go back to their school of residence. So taking it farther and looking at it from the homesteading point, what I think is really wonderful about the charter school setting is not only do you hit all of the standards, the writing, reading, and arithmetic, but you are able to then have a little bit more hands-on in choosing your child's electives and things that they go forward with. You can this is so wonderful. Instead of your child going to their regular fourth grade classroom and learning about fractions and beginning algebra and all these little things that they're putting in our kids' heads right now, you can have a lesson at home on cooking. And everything that you do, I'm going to tell you right now, I want to share this story. I had a student in our charter school setting whose father was diagnosed with cancer. And that family wanted this little girl to have every opportunity to spend time with her father before he passed away. It was a terminal diagnosis. And instead of her going to her regular fifth grade class at her school of residency, they enrolled her in our charter school program. And she was able, I remember this story so vividly, she was able to bake cookies with her dad. And when she baked cookies with her dad, they turned it into a math and a science lesson. And it was all about learning about measurements and learning about how things bake in an oven and the transfer of heat, all these things that she was able to actually write down and put into her own personal experience for her teacher. And then they had a discussion about it, and it was a hands-on learning experience. And she was able to bake cookies with her dad before he passed away instead of being pigeonholed into a classroom with a bunch of other 10-year-olds. And that's where I think it's wonderful. They can do gardening, and that's going to apply to your homeschool setting as well. There's so much they can put forward into the science aspect of it. Weather patterns, soil, we did our soil breakdowns with mysoil.com in our season 1. They can learn all about what's needed to be in their soil to make sure that their garden grows well. When my son was in the program, instead of having to dress out for PE every day, he really got involved in hiking, and that involved the whole family. We would take weekend hikes. We would go to the Painted Desert out there in Nevada. We went up to Mount Tahquitz and did hikes, and that counted towards his PE. And what was really great is instead of him having to dress out and do some stupid, I'm going to say it that way, some stupid activity that some PE teacher determined he's going to do that he doesn't want to do, he was able to choose what he wanted to do, and he had a passion for it. And so he thrived. It's an excellent program. Cayce, I know you want to put a little bit of thought into this.
Well, no, I just think it's so cool because, I didn't know about charter schools. And I think we talked about this before we came on. Me and Monica were not too familiar with charter school. Now, have we heard about it? Yes. So from my understanding, because you've explained it beautifully, Alicia, is that charter school is still somewhat of a public school because you do not have to pay. Okay, that's one of them for our.
Correct. It is public school. It is public education.
So for our listeners to hear that, but it has a sense, a feel of homeschooling because you have to be involved. You get to choose what your child learns, but it's also kind of a feel of a private school too, because that school can say, hey, I don't think this is the best fit for your child. Where public schools cannot they can kick you out, but we won't go into that on this episode. But they can say this is probably not the best option. I just think it's so cool. I've never heard of charter school before. And
and I know you're going to be talking about, as we go forward, about online learning. There's an online learning element to it as well. It hits all of the bases. It's public education. You're still following your state standards. They're credentialed teachers, and it's a credentialed school, so that those credits as a high schooler will follow over into when they want to go to college. They get an actual high school diploma, and you have online learning, and you have that homeschool basis and flexibility. I'm telling you, if it would have been an option for all of my children, I would have done it in a heartbeat. I cannot say enough for how wonderful the charter school system was. Now, having said that, not only did I work for them for over 8 years, and my youngest son went there, my granddaughter in California attends their program. She is a homeschool student. Both of my son and my daughter-in-law both work outside the home. My daughter-in-law's sister lives with them, so she watches my granddaughter during the day. All 3 of them are responsible for her schooling. in connection with her ES, that's called an education specialist. She is a credentialed teacher who meets with them once a month to go over their curriculum and look at how she's progressing. They are all three involved in her schooling. She's never once been to a traditional public school setting. They are in charge of her curriculum. They can determine how much they want of it to be faith-based or how much of it they want to be what's according to state standards. Now, the one thing I will say about a school, a charter school, because it is public education and it does use the ADA funds from the public school setting, you can teach your child a faith-based curriculum. However, the funds will not pay for that because you have the separation of church and state. So you're more than welcome to purchase things and supplement into your curriculum. So you can have that faith-based learning there, but you still have to have your state standards. So I do want to say that because that's important. But you have a lot of flexibility with that. And when I first put my youngest child into the charter school setting, the academy that I placed him in was called Creative Arts Academy. Every single subject was based around the arts, whether it was reading or math. It didn't matter. Sometimes we would pull in different painters, music, whatever we could apply that had something to do with the creative arts for these children. We applied it. We would have PE with the kids in the morning. We'd all go outside with little carpet mats and do yoga, and they would study. We just had such a great time. And what I really enjoyed about it was we didn't have that. When we first started, we only had 35 children. It was myself, 2 teachers, and 35 children. And, we had it set up like a living room where the kids would sit on the couches and read their books and do their math. And they just absolutely flourished in that setting. We had people say to us, and I want to share this and I'll pass it on because I'm passionate about this. I don't know if you could tell. We had people that would come and visit our school and they'd say, the children are thriving. They're so well behaved. Everybody's doing so well. And what is the secret to this charter school being so successful in this area? And we would use the analogy of the public school systems are so overcrowded right now. I know when I went to school, we would have maybe 25 students in a classroom. Now you're topping 40 in a classroom. And there are issues of bullying and other social issues that our children are dealing with right now. When you send a child to school, they have to endure all of that. They have to deal with all that. We use the analogy when we would have parents come in and ask us about this charter school system. We would say, let's say that I am the absolute best instructor in the world on scuba diving. And you can send your child to me to learn about scuba diving. And they show up for the first day of their scuba diving lessons. And I tell them to get into the pool that's full of sharks. And I tell them, don't worry, it's okay. You're going to be all right. You just have to listen to what I say and learn about scuba diving. That child is going to be so focused on the sharks that are in the pool with them, they're not going to pay attention to their scuba diving lesson. When you put a child into a school of choice, and one that, again, you have the choice to come here, but we have the choice to tell you this may not be the right program. If you have bullies in that school system in a charter school, you can say, this isn't the right school for you. And so we've taken the sharks out of the pool. And the student can then learn. And I'm telling you, we had so much success in that program. So I went from starting with those 35 students. And as a matter of fact, one of the teachers I worked with will be coming here to our homestead and visiting us for a week coming up. Such a wonderful program. And then we went into larger academies. We had high school academies. We had homeschool blending program academies. And then I went to go work for their special education program. And that was really nice too, because a lot of the charter schools, if you have a student that has an IEP, if they have a learning disability, they have things set in place where you can get those services as well. And again, it's nothing out of your pocket. It's all state funding. I'm going to finish with one thing here before I pass it over to Monica to talk about the homeschooling, is the reason, and I'm probably going to cut my nose off here. The reason you see so much flack about charter schools is because the teachers' unions don't want those students going to other schools. The teachers' unions want the students to stay in the school of residence because they don't want to see those funds go to a different school. Keep in mind, though, if they're doing their job, if those teachers are doing their job, your students are not going to want to leave to go to another school. So it is a healthy setup of competition. If you don't have any competition, you're just going to run rogue. You're going to monopolize and you're going to run the system the way you want. When you get some competition in there, it's going to show you what you need to do for your student. And families, they tell you what they want by their feet. They will leave if you're not doing your job, and they will go to those charter schools. I cannot say enough about charter schools. Cayce.
I was just going to say, going on as we're talking about all different types, I think you said it beautifully just a minute ago. If you're doing your job, they aren't going to have to go somewhere else. Now, I want to first talk about, because I'm going to be jumping around and talking about different ones all night, on this whole hour. But I want to touch on public for a minute. And I currently, as Monica said, we're all in our different seasons of life, with Alicia having grown children. Monica has children that are in school right now. And myself, I am in a program to foster to adopt children. So mine are children in the future, children to come. I was actually raised in public school. My mother Guest of Ormsby Farm, was a public school teacher for 30 plus years. But towards the end of my schooling career in high school, I was accepted into an arts program. For those that follow me, I know that's a shocker that I'm into the arts. But I went to an all arts academy. Now, it was a public school. It may have been a charter-esque school, because it still had to abide by all of the rules of, you had to do your math and your science and your social studies, but you had dance and you had choir and you had musicals and that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. I ended up not passing a math class and was kicked out of that school and had to go back into public. From there, from our followers that know me, I am openly gay, and I was bullied relentlessly through the school system to where I went to homeschool. And homeschool is what changed and helped me graduate. If I would not have gone to homeschool, I went to what was called Faith Academy here in Georgia. And it is a homeschool program where you go in on a Monday and you and your parent will pick up your assignments for the week and you turn it out on a Friday. You do go in and you have to take tests on site. But that gave me the freedom, as the crazy psycho teenager that I was, to finish school and get an education at the same time. And now as an adult, I just recently worked for a public school system. Monica and Alicia know I'm not going to go into what county that is. I'm not going to kind of go into the school system, because that's not important for me to tell them what kind of county I worked for. But what I learned from working for a county is that and this is my personal opinion, unscripted, y'all, that the public school system are basically training our children to be morons and not know what they need to know as functional adults. Okay, and the way that I'm saying that is, yes, COVID happened. We all know it happened. We all lived through it. Most people, when they think online or homeschool, they're like, oh, it didn't work too well during COVID. Well, that was the public's version of homeschool. It's a little bit different, precious. So I want to talk about, and I'm going to bring Monica because she is a lot more knowledgeable than I am on this. But for me, as a soon-to-be parent, homeschool is where I see myself drifting for my children and my family. Why? Because I can create a study area that is faith-based, which is very important to me and my family. and that we can do it while learning and doing chores on the homestead. As Alicia said, that precious child got to bake with her father before he passed. That is such a beautiful thing that public school kids do not get to do. Again, breeding morons, because they are sitting in a room, sterile room, learning how much is 3 divided by 1. And most of the time, they're not even tuned in. And I can say that from experience. I was a cafeteria manager, and I saw that there was crisis in the classroom for public school, between bullying, between fights, between bringing stuff into school that a 3rd, 4th, and 5th grader should never even know about. And the bad thing is you have these wonderful teachers, because I'm not going to say that all public school teachers are shit.
Shiitake mushrooms. I love shiitake mushrooms on
correct,
pizza.
yes.
Yum.
Unscripted. Y'all know I have a mouth on me. Sorry, y'all. But that I'm not going to say that all teachers are crap. But they are given so much on their plate to have to do on a day-to-day basis that it is truly impossible for that teacher to, one, teach 700 children in their classroom, 2, stay on a schedule that is not all the same for every child. All children don't learn the same. 3, they have to worry about making sure children don't bring in weapons, or children aren't bringing in vapes or cigarettes or drugs. I mean, so much is put on the teacher to where we are losing the good ones that are still out there, or the good ones are going to the charter schools, or the online learning, or the homeschooling. And that's where I'm going to bring in Monica, because Monica has a true firsthand experience on the homeschooling, because that's what she does with her children. Monica?
Okay, so there is so much to unpack here. Okay, so we went from we went from charter school to public school, and we've had experience, right? I have not had experience with charter schools, and there was a lot of information that you all just got, right? We got all this. I think that the basis of all the things we try to do as a family, whether it's young children, whether it's older children, whether it's future children, whether it's grandchildren, whether it's just a husband and a wife on a homestead, we're all learning on a daily basis. And if you are trying to live a life where you don't learn anymore at all, then just turn us off. Because you should be wanting to learn something new every day, not necessarily go to school anymore. Look, I'm telling you right now, I'm done with school right now. I'm done. I don't need to go to college and get more education right now. For me, that's not my season of life. For me right now, the season of life that I am is taking care of my kids and being a mom and being a wife and doing my YouTube and doing all these things. I'm enjoying this part of it. I think that there's a lot to touch on with what they just said, especially when Cayce made the comment that the schools, their kids are sitting in a sterile classroom. I'm sorry. And we are unscripted, but I'm going to tell you right now, Cayce, these rooms are not sterile anymore, babe. They are disgusting. They are filled with trash, with unknowledgeable, generationally dysfunctional people that are tearing our society apart. They are filled with flags of not just gay pride, but of anarchy pride and of Antichrist pride. They are filled with things that are so disgustingly immoral and not necessary. Okay? Not necessary. When I was growing up, I had plenty of teachers that probably went home to be with their husbands, or maybe their wives, or maybe they went home to be with their brothers. But guess what? Because when I was 9 years old, I didn't give a hooey. I didn't care. I didn't need to know. And Miss Zamanina Bowman, when I was in 4th grade, didn't need to tell us whether she had a husband or a wife, or whether she had 3 wives, or whether she had 4 children, or whether her daughter was handicapped in a wheelchair or whatever. I didn't know, and I didn't care. I knew that my 4th grade teacher loved the Washington Redskins. I knew that she made me stand up and say my times tables on a snap. I know that she had the most long, gorgeous nails, and I always wanted to have long fingernails because of her. I knew that if I dare get out of line, I would be in trouble and I would go to the principal's office. That's what I knew in 4th grade. I knew that her daughter was named Foncia because she would call me Moncia, but that's probably about as close to her family as I knew anything about her. I didn't know she was married. I didn't know any of that. That's not my business. I'm a 4th grader. And we have filled our classrooms with knowledge of things that we don't need to have our children have knowledge of. If we focused on things that the kids needed to know, you have to teach your children, your people, to be functioning adults. The problem is that somewhere along the line, we stopped teaching people to be functioning adults, and we just pushed them through because we felt bad for them. We just pushed them through because we felt like, well, school's a little hard. We're just going to push them through. Back in 1999, I had the privilege of teaching in the public school system, and I had substitute taught there for years, and I loved it. And in 1999, mind you, I graduated high school in 96. And 3 years later, I was teaching. They hired me as a full-time sub, and I was so excited to have my own classes because my lifetime dream was to always be a mom and a teacher. That's all I ever wanted to do. I just wanted to be a mom and be a teacher. I never even thought I had to get married to be a mom. I just knew I would have to get married at some point, and I was. So I was very established. I had been married for a couple years, and I was just brand new pregnant. And I never forget getting into that school season and being so excited that I was able to teach seniors in high school. They were graduating seniors in the year 2000. I taught seniors. I taught 10th graders. I taught all seasons of high schoolers. I was 21 years old teaching high schoolers. And let me just tell you, I loved it. I loved every minute of it. These kids joked with me. They made fun of me. They played. They just had a good time, but I had fun. I enjoyed that part of my life, and I enjoyed teaching them their subject. I taught science. I didn't teach them that I had a husband and what we did at night and how I got to be pregnant. That was not my job. My job was to say, hi, I'm your teacher. And yes, I may have graduated 3-4 years ago, but I'm here now to teach you so that you can be an adult like me that has a job in the real world and has a family and can do the things you want to do. You can achieve your goals. And mind you, I had 3 girls in there that were pregnant at the same time I was. Matter of fact, 2 of those girls delivered their babies before me. When the first girl delivered her baby, I went to visit her in the hospital. And you know that I still talk to her this day. Her child is 2 months older than my child. And we still talk to this day because I developed a relationship with her and a rapport with her after the school had ended. I didn't make it my mission to become her friend then. I was still her teacher the entire time, and there was a respect there. We've lost so much of that respect that you can't get that back. So when you homeschool, when you charter school, when you have children, even in public school, look, y'all, I'm not saying don't put your kids in public school. If that's what's right for you and your family, you need to do that. But just make sure you're involved. Try to get your face in there and get your body in there and make sure you're there. Because I have a friend that is very much involved parent. And let me just tell you how many times her daughter has had trouble at school. She's been bullied. My nephew has been bullied in public schools. And I've watched both of them be pulled out of the public school system. And now they're in private schools or charter schools because the public school system, even though the parents were super involved, it's now not working for them. Okay, I haven't even touched on homeschooling yet, but I can see that Alicia and Cayce both are very excited about this disrespect issue, and they want to say something too.
Well, one thing that I wanted to say is for people who are listening, for our listeners, we understand 100% wholeheartedly. You might not have options available to you right now where you're at, where you live, or the chapter in life that you're in right now.
Yeah.
We understand that. But we want you to open your mind to the possibility of different options. We're not here to tell you
Correct.
that public school is awful.
Exactly.
We're here to tell you you have options. You need to start paying attention to the options. If your child goes to public school and you love it and they're thriving, that is wonderful. That's what we want for your children. We want them to thrive. But if you're struggling and you're looking for options, this is what we're talking about today, is options that are available to you as a parent who, whatever stage you're in homesteading, how it applies to you, we just want you to open your mind and realize you have options, valid options. And I know Monica's going to get back to talking about homeschooling, and I'm just going to I want to throw this nugget out there so she can touch on it. If you're homeschooling, make sure, check where you're living to see if you have to be under an umbrella. If you have to have something that protects you as a homeschooling parent, I know she'll be able to touch on that for us. And then also one more thing I want to point out, and I know Monica could touch on this as well. A lot of the times when you have people talk to you about a charter school or homeschooling, they're going to say, but my child's going to miss out on socialization. I know Monica can attest the fact her children get plenty of socialization outside of the homestead through the homesteading program that she works. And I know when my son was in the charter school, there's plenty of opportunities for socialization. So don't think that your child's going to be ostracized and put in a corner if you look into choosing one of these options. I know Cayce wanted to say something. I'm going to throw it back over to Monica for more about homeschooling. Cayce.
I was also just going to kind of touch on what you were saying, Alicia, too, that one, when you hear us during this episode, don't think that we are tearing down any decision that you made for your family. Know that our opinions are just that. They are opinions. And we are just giving advice on what we feel is the best for our families. Because look at the three of us. We are all three so different. Me, I can't keep my mouth closed on most things without saying the wrong curse word. So I will say this. I will give kind of a little backstory. Monica was talking about the disrespect in the classrooms. And I'm not going to call out the county that I worked for. If you know me personally, you know which county it is. But I will share an email that I received right before I left the school system. And it was for the next school system that said, we as admin and teachers, basically the children did not have to stand up for the Pledge of Allegiance anymore if they did not want to. And we as staff could not make them. And that is when I knew that leaving that position was the correct decision for me, because I'm very, very passionate that you should stand up at that moment. Period. Point blank. No excuse. I don't care. If you are an American, you should be standing up. If you have 2 feet to stand on, you should be standing up. Period. Point blank. Monica, I see your ears are fuming.
So we recently went to Fort McHenry, and I hope you guys know where Fort McHenry is, because it's literally the basis of our Star Spangled Banner. Like, kind of that's where you saw the flag waving and the rockets, red glare, the bombs bursting in air, all that jazz. Okay, so we were there, and they do this magnificent, beautiful display. When you first walk in, they have this inside piece, and they do this beautiful story. It's like 10 minutes long. And at the end of the story, they lift this curtain. And when they lift their curtain that they had just done this big presentation on, it's like a really nice, presentation, this remake of the actual time and how it happened. And Francis Scott Key wandering, looking out there, wondering if the flag is still there. And then they lift up this curtain, and you see through the huge, massive glass windows, you see Fort McHenry on the hill, and you see the flag. And I'm like, oh, and immediately, like, tears are streaming down my face. And immediately I stand up. Well, I was kind of standing, sitting. So I stood up and I hand to the heart, and I'm just standing there, and they're playing the song. And as our Star Spangled Banner is playing, I'm standing there and tears streaming down my eyes. And I look over at my children, and some of my children were like, what is she crying about? And I was like, children, you better stand up. Now, my children know when we pray at church, when we sing at church, you stand up. I don't care if you're singing or not. I want you to sing, but I can't force you to sing. I can't hold your lips open and smack them around and make you sing. But you will stand during praise and worship. You will you will bow your head during prayer. You could be saying the ABCs in your brain, and that's on you. But you have respect. And I realized at that moment that I hadn't really taught them that, because we hadn't had the opportunity as much. Now, we do have that chance when we say the Pledge of Allegiance at our school, when we have our co-op, we do the Pledge of Allegiance. My children know how to do that, but they hadn't really had the opportunity to hear the national anthem. And I realized there was a gap in my learning. So as much as I was kind of a little bit salty about some of the people that weren't doing that, what I was doing, I realized that I still had a hole in my learning and my teaching. And I wanted to teach that, because I am training my children to be functional adults. but I want them to be respectful humans, respectful of people that they don't know, respectful of people that are different, respectful of vegans and vegetarians that don't eat meat, respectful for people that don't look like them or don't sound like them or whatever it is. I don't want my kids to be disrespectful because whoever they're interacting with doesn't look like or sound like them, you know? And I tell my kids, just because you like a bowl of cereal doesn't mean Johnny's going to like the same bowl of cereal, and that's okay. You don't not like him because he's eating something different or doing something different or living a different way. That's part of our schooling. That's part of what I'm teaching my children. And that's one of the things we try to really emphasize on the homestead here. While we're homeschooling, while we're doing anything, is respect. Alicia, you have something you want to say about that?
I do. Since we're talking about the pledge and the Star Spangled Banner and patriotism, there's been some recent studies that patriotism is at an all-time low in our country.
I don't know why.
And so we've lost so much. But one thing I wanted to point out, since you were talking about the people not knowing a lot of the history about our national anthem, same goes for the Pledge of Allegiance. And if you get the chance, and I don't know if Monica has had the chance to do this with her children, but I highly recommend looking up on YouTube, look up Red Skelton. Look up Red Skelton, and he explains the Pledge of Allegiance, line by line by line, what it means. And
which is super important.
Neat.
Yeah, that's a great thing.
I just wanted to say that.
I thought you were going to reference Hancock again. I wasn't sure where you were.
I was going to write you privately and say Hancock. No, Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton.
Not
he is a founding father on the $10 bill.
I was about to say, how did you know my county?
How did John Hancock get into this?
Hamilton.
John Hancock did sign the Declaration of Independence, and Alexander Hamilton did not.
Alicia's on a Hamilton kick, so
I'm on a Hamilton kick.
We're just going along with it.
Yeah, because I tell you, if you want to learn something about one of our founding fathers,
somebody have Lin-Manuel Miranda email Alicia, please. Like, if you're listening to this, please get
Lin-Manuel,
please get
a hold of me because
she's your biggest fan right now.
So far down the rabbit hole now on everything Alexander Hamilton. I'm reading a 700-page book about him.
See?
It is amazing what this founding father did for our country. I'm going to jump off of the Hamilton soapbox. If you have not seen the play, watch it on Disney Plus and learn a little bit about the Revolutionary War and our founding fathers.
Or Disney Plus.
Or Disney Plus. But I did want to get back.
Well, write to me.
But Monica, I wanted to get back because we were talking about homeschooling, and for somebody like me, who will call me, okay, so we're calling Alicia, I don't want to say the past present a parent because she's still a parent, but her kids are grown, and Monica is the current parent, and I am the future parent. So when someone is thinking, okay, homeschooling is where I need to go, or online schooling, what is the first thing you think, Monica, that someone should do if they get that inkling that they want to homeschool their child or want to do online schooling? I know I have an opinion on it, but you're the kind of specialist that we brought on today to do the homeschooling.
Well, I think
not Disney.
I think I'm not Disney Plus. I think what we're going to do, what I always say, and this is going to be a trend with me, I'm always going to talk about this. Find a friend. I'm always about finding a friend, finding that person that has homeschooled or that is currently homeschooled. If it's someone that has done it in the past or that knows about it, you're going to look at different places where you can go. I always recommend that as a new homeschooling parent, let's just say you have a 4-year-old and you're like, I really want to homeschool. Find a co-op. And we are a part of a co-op. Now, because I have so many children, when I had my oldest, when he was 5, we had already had him homeschooled for about a year.
She has like a football team of children for our new listeners.
But what I want to say, though, is that it was really hard for me to join co-ops when my older kids were learning. When they were schooling, it was really difficult for me because a lot of co-ops, and in Maryland, because I've homeschooled now in 2 different states, a lot of the co-ops in Maryland were small, but they were, it was hard for me because I didn't have a place for my young children, my very young ones. And I don't just put my kids in nurseries. I just can't. And in co-ops, a lot of times you don't have room for that. So I would say if you're a new parent and you're thinking about homeschooling, phone a friend. Find somebody that's new at it. If you don't, or that's been doing it. If you don't have a friend that's been doing it or knows about it, ask another friend if they have a friend, because that's a lot of times how people learn, right? Find a co-op in your area. Find the county that you're in. Look it up, co-ops. You can find it. Call your homeschooling people. Call your local. So here in Texas, their IEDs. What is it? What is it? That's not an A. What is it? It's an independent. It's an ISD, an independent school district is what it's called in Texas. In Maryland, you go county by county. So for instance, when I was in Maryland and I wanted to homeschool, I called Anne Arundel County. I talked to the educating guy, the guy that was in charge of the homeschooling part of the Anne Arundel County homeschooling groups. He knew, he could tell me all the co-ops. He could give me all these pieces. He could talk to me about umbrella groups, different requirements. He gave me everything. And I knew that twice a year, I had to bring him a big fat notebook full of evidence, a portfolio to show that I was homeschooling my children. And they would basically give me a passing or a fail. And I would have to either pass that I did enough for my kids, or I failed because I didn't have enough evidence that I was homeschooling. I will say that's difficult on a mom, because I am not I'm a planner, but I'm also a procrastinator. And so I would spend all night the night before trying to get all of the work together that I could show these people that I was teaching my children enough. And then I would stress over the fact that I was or wasn't teaching my kids enough. Now in Texas, you don't have that. The rules are a lot different here. They're like, yeah, you're homeschooling your kids. Cool. Like I got here and nobody knew my kids were here. I didn't have to pull them out of a school because they never have anything. So we didn't sign up anywhere. You don't sign up anything. You don't call an independent school district and say, hi, I'm with your ISD. And guess what? We're not bringing my kids in. Nope. That's not how it works. You just don't. You just don't. There are a lot of options here. There's a lot more homeschooling options for me here in Texas. I have a lot more co-ops. And as my kids are older now, I've graduated 3 children. My options are more flexible. I think that if you're brand new at homeschooling and you're trying to look into it, you need to get online. You need to find people that are doing it or have done it and get in touch with them and get their recommendations, especially for your area in particular. And, if you're part of our beginning homestead guide, that's one of those things that I feel like you should be able to ask there too. If you know someone or you have anybody that's interested in that stuff, that's all a part of homesteading, is teaching your children wherever you're at. And whether that's at home or whether they're in public school or charter school, you're still learning and you're still teaching. There's a whole big, it's all a process really. So, Alicia?
I wanted to throw into that, Monica, because I've homeschooled my children in addition to the charter school. Before charter schooling, I did homeschool as well. If you're thinking about going into homeschooling with your children and you're in the elementary and middle school grades, yes, do like Monica said, find out what you need to do, get a friend, make sure you're under an umbrella in a co-op. If you already have students who are in 9 through 12 and you're thinking about homeschooling, it is very, very important that you find out what you need to do to make sure that your students get their credits that they need to graduate and get their diploma. Am I correct, Monica, or have things changed since I homeschooled? You really want to don't leave your kids hanging out to dry where they can't get a diploma or go into college because they don't have anything to back up the fact that they've had this schooling.
Well, I know in Texas, diploma is a very loose term here, I guess. So in order to get a diploma in the state of Texas, you actually have to attend a public school. If you are a homeschooler, the only way you're getting a diploma is if your parent prints you out one, which I have done now for my 3 children. I order them online and I sign them, and we go through all the process and check off all the boxes. But to get into college, that's really all they need. Now, the thing is that certain colleges want you to have a GED. Certain colleges, you have to take tests to get into it. So regardless of whether they finish at 11th grade or 12th grade, whatever it is, they take these tests. A lot of kids that are graduating with my children, they're starting school. We have the dual credit programs now, and they're starting college in 11th grade. And my children haven't done it personally, but they have very close friends. My soon-to-be daughter-in-law, she actually graduated with her associate's degree. She got her associate's degree the weekend before she graduated high school, technically. So she graduated with her associates from high school. And so she only has 2 more years of a 4-year college down here in Texas to finish up her bachelor's degree. So that's how kids are doing it nowadays. I mean, they're really going ahead of the game. And it's not really about the high school diploma anymore. It's more about what you can get for college while you're in high school. Now, my kids aren't there. My kids were never really interested in that. And I'm okay with that. I think that people push college. Personally, this is my opinion. Don't come for me. And honestly, you want to come for me, come on for it. I don't care. I don't push college. I don't think college is that big of a deal. I think that my husband is extremely successful, raising a family of 8 children plus. You know, I also hit myself. He's going to raise me too because we got to pay for me. But he is,
Wait,
maintained.
Are any 3 of us college graduates? Are any 3 of us?
None of my 3 are college graduates.
No, I'm talking
None
about.
I'm not a graduate. I've taken some classes,
3 of
but
us.
my husband's not either.
I have an equivalent of a bachelor's degree, but I didn't officially get a bachelor's. I have an associate's degree, but I officially didn't get a bachelor's. But I went to the doula and the education to get what's equivalent to a bachelor's, but they don't call it that. It's just a certificate and a diploma of graduation that way.
I was LPN, so I guess LPN probably is equivalent of an associate's, I guess.
Yeah, but
Alicia,
life skills, vocational training.
Yes,
all of that is so important right now.
Yeah,
well,
that's the direction that I think we need to send our children.
For not being what people would call the quote unquote college educated folks. Like, I mean, if you want to come for us, I mean, we get it. we get those comments all the time. We're not scared.
There's something to be said. There's something to be said for those who have their college degrees, and if it applies to what they're doing for their career, that's wonderful. But if you have a student that is going to do better in a vocation, then don't push the college if they're better with vocational training. And that they're going to be able to do something that they love. I can't tell you how many people before we moved from California to where we are now, how many people with bachelor's degrees were trying to get a job at Dairy Queen.
Yeah.
Because there was nothing out there for them. So just because you have that college credential doesn't mean that the job market's going to support it. It's always good to have something vocational to back up on. Monica?
So I think that's the most important thing too, when it comes to homeschooling or any type of schooling. Because here's the thing, guys, you can send your kids to public school, but when they get back on your property, they're your responsibility again. Now, obviously they're your responsibility all the time, but when your kids are back in your presence, when the people that live with you are in your presence, then you're responsible for teaching them to be functioning adults, right? That's what our goals are, our parents. It's not to baby them, to coddle them, or to, I mean, look, you can baby some kids. Look, I hold my children. I'm going to baby them to a certain point, but I'm also trying to teach them to be responsible, functioning adults that know how to deal with life and to take it sometimes with a grain of salt. I mean, they've got to be able to do that. But the thing is like I have 3 children that are graduated. They were all the way homeschooled. They homeschooled their whole entire life. And my oldest son is now working in the building industry. He does building maintenance. And that's how Eric started. Now, Eric did not go to college. He went to 1 semester. He started it. He hated it. He's like, no way, this is not for me. And he didn't go. So after that, he decided that once we were married, he needed a career. His dad was like, look, son, you're married now. You need a career. And so at 19 years old, he decided to go into the technical field, the vocational degree, and he got himself an HVAC degree. You know, he went to school, got his HVAC degree, and then he started being an apprentice. And then he went to journeyman. And then he got his master's license. He got his master HVAC license in his mid-30s. He's held this license for over 10 years now. There's not a lot of people that are 35 years old or 34 years old that they have a master license in heating, ventilation, air conditioning, refrigeration, all that. That's what he holds. And I was really proud of him because not only did he get that, but then he decided, you know, I do kind of like the idea of going to school to get some stuff. So he got a background. He got his master's, his bachelor's and his master's degree in theology. Now, did he use it? Sure, he used it for a little bit. But for the most part, that's what he wanted to do when he was ready. And as an adult, he decided that. my oldest son now is following in his dad's footsteps, and he's doing the engineering field. And I said to my husband tonight, I said, Eric, do you think he'll go to school for that? And he said, I've been encouraging him to do that. But he's more of a hands-on guy. And so my 23-year-old is showing up to work in a field that he's only been doing for 6 months. And he is going above and beyond men that have been there in that field for a dozen years. And it's amazing to watch my kids do that kind of stuff because we've been pouring into them work ethic, respect, communication, all these different characteristics, all these different character traits, and all the ways to deal with people and to be adults. And I've been training him for these moments his entire life. When we moved here in 2014, he was 14 years old. And one of the first things we had to do was kind of fix some things in here. And I probably have said this before, but my 14-year-old helped my husband, helped Eric. Eric actually showed him what to do when they walked out of the room. He switched the light switches around in my bathroom. Something very simple. I couldn't do it. I'm probably going to do that. But he switched the light switches so that, because they were all wonky in the house where like the light switch was on the far corner and there was a fan in the middle and then it was weird. So Caleb said, this dad doesn't like the way this is set up. So I'm going to go ahead and switch these around. And he switched 3 light switches on a switch plate. And it was the most simple thing to him. But to me, it was awesome because he was literally 14 years old. And I've got my 12-year-old at the time, my next son, 12 years old. He's pulling zucchini out of the garden going, I think I want to make zucchini bread. Looking up recipes online himself, finding great recipes and cooking himself zucchini bread, finding out how to make the best daggone cinnamon rolls he could possibly make. This is what he does in the middle of the day. He finishes his schoolwork by noon and says, I'm going to bake some cinnamon rolls. Is that cool, Mom? I'm like, you better believe it's good. It's fine with me.
Why do we want cinnamon rolls right now? Thank you so much, Monica.
Oh, I'm gonna tell you, Luke makes the best cinnamon rolls.
And it's all because they have a love for learning,
yes,
and taking pride in what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And I have to tell you, I've again not to knock credentials. I've worked with people who have had master's degrees that cannot fight their way out of a wet paper bag.
Yeah.
And yet I've worked with people who have the skill set and the street smarts to do things like what you're talking about, a 14-year-old switching around electrical wiring. So, it doesn't always come down to, boy, we've gotten way off topic here. But the thing is if you open your mind up to embracing other opportunities for education, you can see that there are a lot of different ways you can go for your children and provide them with just a different learning environment where they may thrive. Right. They may thrive in a public school setting, and that's fine. Just be open to the other things because they may amaze you with what they can do.
Well, I will say also when we were talking about...
I think we're coming up to an hour, aren't we? Sorry, Casey.
No, I was just going to say quickly before we wrap up on our hour, as we were talking about homeschool, that homeschool and online, because we've mentioned it, is 2 different things. And I wanted to just put that out there real fast for folks to know that there are online options that are charter, public, homeschool, and private options. When you are wanting to, quote unquote, and y'all can't see the air quotes that I'm making, homeschool, look at all those different options. Of course, you are going to have the good Wi-Fi in your area. If you are a, homesteading parent that is a single parent and you're in the garden or you're raising chickens all the time, maybe look into a teacher or tutor taught led homeschooling program. So I just wanted to put that out there and then pass it back over to you, Monica, that when we talk about homeschooling and online, it is 2 different things when we talk about homeschooling and online, because online schooling can be all that we've talked about tonight, including what Alicia talked about with charter. All of that can be online. You need to find what's best for you and your family. But Monica, to wrap up about homeschooling.
Yeah, I think that's the thing too. We do a lot of online homeschooling. There's things that my kids do that is online. They work right now during the summer. All their homeschooling is online. We school all year round. That's another benefit to having kids homeschooled with me. I teach them all year long. They're learning all year long. We start our co-op in the fall, and the options can overlap. Online, homeschooling, charter, public school, everything can really overlap because really, I think the whole idea is you're fostering a love of learning. You're fostering that idea that no matter what you're doing, there's always something to learn. Your life is your classroom. Where you're at is your classroom. You can learn so much in the garden. You can learn so much in the pasture. You can learn so much in the chicken coop or the turkey run or wherever you're at. You can learn life's lessons and learning lessons. And when you homeschool or do whatever, you're really customizing for the future. And one thing I wanted to touch on before we go is, Alicia said about the teachers, kind of getting upset when kids were like leaving to go to the charter school and they were upset about it. And I thought about that and I thought, that's really sad because teachers, people in general, we should want the best for our future, for our kids. But it's human nature to be upset or maybe jealous of something better than what we have to offer. Or maybe we think we're not offering what's the best and we get a little upset and we get a little hurt thinking that someone is leaving what we've offered and going somewhere else. And the worst part about it is every place is like that. Churches are even like that. When you leave a church and you go to another church, people get all mad about it. Like, well, you left us. Well, I'm finding something that works for our family right now. So I think in the end, whether you're homeschooling, whether you're public schooling, charter schooling, whatever you're doing, I feel like as a homesteader or a beginning homesteader, or maybe you're just a regular guy or gal listening on the radio to some of, these podcasts, whatever you're doing, I think if you choose what's best for you and what's best for your family so that you can be a functional adult, so your children will be functional adults or your grandchildren will be functional adults one day, I think that's the best possible thing. And we support you and we say, go for it because that's what we want.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Choose what's best for you. Just know that you have options. So on that note, we're coming up here to the end of this broadcast. Again, we're not saying that one setting is better than the other. We know that not everybody has all of these options to choose from. We just want you to be open-minded. Take into consideration that you do, as parents and grandparents, have options for your children. Pick what's best for them. It's worth making the investment. They are our future. So having said that, we thank you so much for joining us here on Round the Hay Bale for our season 4. And if you have any questions or comments or concerns about what we've discussed here about these different options of schooling, please make sure you let us know. Keep it friendly. And we're going to go ahead and wrap it up. We'll see you guys tomorrow on our live. So make sure you come back and check that out. And, I want to point out that we are going to be sponsored by Kelzyme again this year. So we're going to be promoting that as well on our live. Great stuff for your homesteading gardens. I was going to say it has really nothing to do with your schooling options, but it does because your students can learn so much about the calcium that's needed for. Yes, calcium. It's wonderful.
Ding, ding,
so,
ding,
I mean,
ding.
there's learning all around you. There's learning all around you. So make sure you join us. Make sure you come back and listen to our next podcast. Join us on YouTube, on Facebook, and all of our podcast options you can find us. Until we see you again, take care of yourself, take care of each other, and be blessed. Bye-bye, guys.